to have you here tonight and to learn more about what we think is a pretty amazing solar project that we've been working on in partnership with CED over the last year and a half. It's a project that's helping us to practically live out our values of creation care and engaging in climate justice work at Rockway. And it's generated significant buzz, pun intended, in our community and resulted in deep engagement by our faculty, staff, and students. And you're going to be hearing from one of our students tonight. And lots of our faculty here, including Sarah Wall, who, along with her creative team, have embraced this opportunity at Rockway, and they're using it as a way to center the topic of hope in the conversation on climate change. So students have designed logos. You see them kind of painted on the butcher block paper in front of you. One of our students designed this logo as part of the Rockway solar installation. They've developed prototypes using 3D printers for a solar installation indoors, where we can track live digitally what the energy that's being created on the rooftop. They've been supported by some pretty amazing faculty who have an amazing vision for how we can make this tangible and visible at the school level. So there's an all-school video planned. I learned just this week that Sarah has bought for me a suit, and it's like clouds in blue, and I have no choice in the matter. It's going to happen. I don't know what I'm going to be saying or what I'm going to be doing, but I'm looking forward to it. It'll be really fun. It's an all-school video centered around the solar project. And we're even planning a solar-themed party in the springtime. Suffice it to say that the solar project has not only made a huge impact on our facilities, but has also permeated all aspects of student life. In fact, in chapel, when I told the student body that the solar project was nearing completion, it was a spontaneous cheering that happened in our students. It was actually really cool to witness. They're so excited about it. But along the way, as I've had a chance to talk about this with the news and talking about this with other Mennonite principals across the country, the most common question I get is, how are you able to afford such a massive installation? You know, do you have some super donor who kind of swooped in and did this for you? And that would be great. In fact, if you want to talk to me afterwards, I'd really chat with you. But if that's not the case, it's given me an opportunity to talk about the work of CED and the partnership that we've been able to form to make this happen. So after getting the same question a number of times, we thought, you know what, maybe it would be beneficial for us to create an event like this, where people can hear both information about the project at Rockway, as well as information about CED as an organization and what they do, and potentially how they might want to invest and partner with CED themselves. Because CED is helping to leverage these kinds of large-scale projects into the world, which we think are really, really important as we're thinking about the topic of mitigating climate change. So, my hope for you this evening is that you leave feeling more informed about the Rockway project, the work of CED, and inspired to think about what you might be able to do to engage in the important work of creation care. So let's start by looking at a few images of the project. So when you came in, you might have saw some overhead drone footage, but I wanted to just kind of take you through maybe a bit of a before and after series of photos so you can kind of see what the roof space looked like before CED and then after. Yep, during. This is during. Yep. There's people working. It's definitely during. The school looks way bigger than it actually feels when I look at it like that. I don't know. It gives you a sense of the scale of the project. When it's up and running, it is anticipated to generate approximately 527,000 hours of kilowatt hours of energy per year, and was intentionally designed to provide more than Rockway's yearly energy needs. So in other words, as Sarah likes to say, we will be powered on sunshine.
Running on sunshine.
How did I forget that? there's a song. Anyways, we'll be running on sunshine. So in partnership with CED, they're responsible for providing all the upfront capital for the project installation. So to be clear, that means that Rockway, as an institution, has paid not a single cent attached to the installation that's on our roof right now. In the partnership, Rockway agrees to sign an agreement with CED to pay energy, or to buy energy from CED at a slightly below market rate for the duration of the 25-year contract. So the contract builds in an increase of 3% per year per kilowatt hour over the term of the contract. So this is how CED is able to recoup the initial infrastructure investment costs, as well as helping to create positive financial return for their investors. So from Rockway's perspective, we anticipate that we will save some money on our energy bills year over year for the next 25 years, and we're able to live more practically into our values around creation care and not have to shoulder the burden of the initial capital required to make the project a reality. So just as an aside, as a Mennonite institution, the values of cooperatives align really deeply, and they're very resonant with how we think about things like this. So to partner with an organization like CED kind of illustrates the idea that we can accomplish more together than we can apart. And so at the end of the project, the panels will become the property of Rockway, and we will then fully benefit from the energy that is contributed to the main grid. The panels themselves, I'm told by CED, are rated to continue to generate power well beyond the contract term. So we're going to hold them to that. And we see this partnership as one that will continue to benefit Rockway as an organization many years into the future. It actually, as I was speaking with a colleague the other day, reminds me of the 7-generation principle that many Indigenous communities make decisions by. And so this principle states that you must consider the impact of your decisions 7 generations into the future. So I'm not sure if these panels will still be generating energy 7 generations into the future, but we do feel strongly as an organization that we want to think very carefully about how to ensure that these kinds of decisions that we make will positively impact our community long after each of us are gone. So thank you for being here. Thanks for engaging in the conversation. I'm looking forward to connecting with you and learning more about what drew you here this evening. So please say hi, introduce yourself at some point this evening. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Unruh, who is the president of CED, who's going to talk a little bit more about CED and the project itself.
Hi, I'm pleased to be here this evening to share more about the solar project, a bit more about some of the organizations behind it, and how it came into being. We'll go to the next slide, Jen. Thank you. So I am Brian Unruh. I'm the president of VCT Group, and that's the solar project development company that designed and constructed this project, and which also happens to be celebrating its 17th anniversary of its initial incorporation today. And I'm also the president of Community Energy Development Cooperative, or CED Co-op for short, and that's the organization, as said, that is funding, owning, and operating the solar facility on the rooftop of the school. So Rockway itself holds a special level of importance for me. Here is a picture of the part of the roof of the gym during construction. I am a proud Rockway parent with my 3 children attending Rockway. 2 are now graduated and the 3rd is on the far right. I had been trying to set up a dad, but the 3rd one decided to prioritize some homework over attending the event this evening. My kids are 3rd generation attendees at the school within our family. So my wife and her father have also graduated from Rockway. And beyond this, I myself was a teacher here at Rockway for about 2.5 years. I was here on a part-time basis teaching computer studies courses from 2000 through 2002. You can find my face in a couple of the all-school pictures in the hallway in front of the library. And I think there are still 2 or 3 people remaining on staff, a couple of them who are here tonight, Jen and Stefan, who were here during my time. And though a couple of my former students are now in the faculty as well. I have great memories of my time here and great respect for this institution, which is heavily shaped by so many great faculty and staff that have been connected with this organization over the years. With our VCT group company turning 17 years old today, it is interesting to reflect on some of the events of the past years. When we first started into the industry, we were working with water power, wind power, and solar power. Renewables in general were often referred to as alternative energy, giving it somewhat of a feeling of hobbyist power generation. From when we first began purchasing solar panels to today, the price of solar panels has dropped by 95%. I never believed that we would be able to build systems as cost effectively as we can today. Solar power is recognized as the cheapest source of energy ever. And with this, renewables are no longer alternative energy, they are mainstream energy. I feel privileged to be working in this industry, which is one of the most exciting, dynamic, and important industries in the world right now. It is known that the number one element in advancing a society is access to abundant, reliable, and low-cost energy. It enables work and learning to extend beyond daylight hours, and it provides power to operate machines and create comfortable work environments. With solar power being plentiful, inexpensive, and universally available, renewable energy is a tool for reducing poverty. As we look at so many of the conflicts that have occurred and those ongoing, energy and resources figures prominently in many of them. It really isn't feasible to steal wind or sunshine. Renewable energy is the path for countries to achieve energy independence and energy security, and it is the path to providing economic resilience. Renewable energy is a tool for peace. When we look at the global effects that are being caused by climate change, floods, fires, storms, those that are impact the worst are the most vulnerable around the globe, those that don't have the means to escape searing heat waves, uncontrollable floodwaters, or winds that bring down all but the most stable structures. Renewable energy is a tool for driving towards equality. Analysis has shown that of all the money water region spends on energy in its various forms, only 13% of it stays in this region. Ontario has no reserves of oil or gas. This means that every bit of oil and gas that we burn has to be brought in from outside of the province, sending our money elsewhere. With solar projects such as this one, we produce energy right where it is being consumed, avoiding the need for importing. When we look at the materials we buy for our projects, the wages we pay, and the value created through energy generation from these projects, we increase how much money stays in our local economy from 13% to somewhere between 50 and 70% just in the project construction phase. And in its energy generation, increases to nearly 100% of the funds staying in the local economy, where the value of our work is magnified and multiplied, creating many direct and indirect jobs. Renewable energy is a tool for local economic development and prosperity. When I left Rockway, I first spent time working in a local credit union for about 7 years. Credit unions, being financial cooperatives, gave me some of my first insight into how cooperatives operate. Working in the financial services industry, I gained an understanding of the investment industry and how it steers all investors towards the markets. Beyond this, having started companies and worked at raising capital, I saw how many barriers were put in place that prevent all but the wealthy from finding ways to invest directly into local businesses. As the various market influences drove us to create CED Co-op, I was very pleased to find us in a position that we could create an opportunity for anyone in the province to make an investment directly into a local company and local projects, to be able to utilize RSP and TFSA investment structures to take advantage of tax savings, and to provide an alternative to the market structures that provides steady and reliable payouts. So if you're not familiar with the cooperative business model, cooperatives have existed for more than 200 years. They are the original social enterprise, the creators of the crowdfunding model, pooling resources of members to accomplish more together than any of us could on our own. And this crowdfunding has had our members place more than $20 million into our hands over the years, that we paired with institutional funding that has seen us grow a portfolio of more than $45 million in value, as you've seen many of the projects in the previous slides. Co-ops are among the most democratic forms of business. They are built and equally owned by the members of the organization. Membership is signified through the purchase of a single $10 membership share, and these membership shares are the common shares of the cooperative corporation. With this, each member, as a shareholder, gets to vote on the matters of the cooperative and help direct the operations of the co-op. Each member can have only one membership share, and with this, only one vote amongst our membership at an AGM. The focus of CED Co-op can broadly be summarized in a few items, but this work extends into many ancillary efforts and benefits. Firstly, we raise capital, investment capital from our members that we invest in projects that provide excellent long-term financial returns, and very importantly, they also reduce carbon emissions. With this capital, we work to grow our portfolio through both the acquisitions of existing projects as well as the origination and construction of new projects. These projects support community-based energy independence in that they are locally owned projects that keep the money in the local community, as well as the fact that these are distributed rather than centralized energy projects, producing the energy right where it's being consumed. In turn, this grows our membership of investors and project partners, which fosters a community of action-oriented, sustainable energy thought leaders. There is power in our community. Before we created CED Co-op, we approached various banks for project financing where some of the lenders clearly did not understand solar energy, with their questions more or less coming to the asking of what happens if the sun doesn't come up tomorrow. And I can assure you that the cooperative, having itself operated projects for more than 10 years, the sun does in fact come up every day. And this has facilitated our cooperative sharing returns with our investors and members, totaling $17.6 million so far, with much more to come. So to bring this full circle, the motivation for this project mostly started as casual conversations over the years with faculty and staff while attending volleyball games, spaghetti suppers, Christmas concerts, and musicals. Some conversations started by Rockway people, some started by me, but each resulting in excitement about the prospect. With the launch of the Canadian Clean Technologies Investment Tax Credit, it put the project in the financial position that became a significant benefit for everyone involved, and the project came to life. So we are grateful to Rockway for sharing the values and the vision of what this project can achieve for the school, this community, and beyond. I invite you to join me and the many others in the room as members and owners to make an impact in how we create and consume energy. We look forward to opportunities to engage in discussion and answer questions, but I will first pass things to Zach, who's going to provide some of the more technical details of how this all works.
How's everybody feeling? Are you feeling inspired? I see lots of smiles out there. This is good. Okay, I'll start with a bit of an intro while we get the slides queued up. My name is Zach. I work at VCT Group, the constructor of the system here at Rockway. Excellent. And I've been there for a couple of years, actually pretty close to a work anniversary right now. And I am fresh enough at VCT to remember what it was like before I worked in solar. And understanding at that time that solar panels made electricity, but not a lot much past that, right? You know, where does it go? How do you make your money? And I just want to kind of explain a few of the technical elements of how solar works, how power purchase agreements work, how something called net metering works, so that there's a good understanding in the room of what's happening here and how things are going. So, maybe a quick show of hands, like how many in the room would say they're at the point where they know a solar panel makes electricity, and maybe not too much more? Who's with me? Yeah. Okay. So this is why we're here. This is what we're here to talk about. So, in years gone by, there was a program in Ontario, called Feed-in Tariff. All right. Under this program, you got paid to inject power into the grid. You didn't use it on site. You just sent it to the grid. You got paid for each unit of power you sent to the grid. And that's not the way it works anymore. All right. Now we have a system called net metering. The idea here is that you use the power that you consume on the site where it's produced. Okay. So coming to Rockway here, Rockway's got panels on the roof. Right? Those panels make electricity. And what we do, if we're looking at the diagram here, is use the power in the building. When there's extra, we send it to the grid, and we get credits. We don't get paid for it, but you get credits for it. So when it comes time to draw power from the grid, we're going to use credits first, and then buy power afterwards. Everybody with me? Okay. All right, so this is net metering. This is how it works. And to give you an example of what it looks like, we'll go next slide. We've got some graphs here. And these graphs are from a local building. Anyone been to the Evolve 1 building in Waterloo? Do we know it? All right. So there's a whole bunch of solar there, and that building was designed to produce slightly more power than it consumes over the course of the year, to be a net contributor to the grid. And what we're looking at here is the production of the systems, as well as the consumption of power at those sites. So what you see on the left-hand side of each of these graphs in blue is the draw from the grid that's being consumed in the building at that time. Now, at the, 7 o'clock mark or so on these graphs, you see the sun starts to wake up. Right? And very quickly, the solar ramps up into full production. And you see that the blue turns to green. And that green represents power that is being produced by the solar array and simultaneously consumed on site. And you'll notice at this site, this is summer day, right? So solar's just banging. We very quickly get to a point where the solar is producing more power than the site can consume at that time. So we're into export mode at that point. So everything you see in yellow on these graphs here is power that's being sent to the grid that site is using to generate credits. So that when it comes to nighttime, or days like today, where there's just snow and clouds and more snow and clouds, or snow on panels, which happens in the winter in Canada, we're going to draw on those credits. So if we go to the next slide, this is what it looks like over the course of the whole year. So you see in the summer months, we're a net exporter. In the winter months, we're drawing from the grid. And the idea is that you balance things out. So over the course of the year, on a net basis, the system produces about what you needed to consume in the building where it's installed. And this is how solar works in Ontario right now. This is how solar works in this building. I'll stop for a question. I've got some time here. So anybody got questions about how that works? All right, I'm doing such a good job. All right, let's keep things rolling here. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, so Brian mentioned something called the Clean Technology Investment Tax Credit. This is something that was approved as part of Bill C-59 last year, and it provides a 30% refundable tax credit to tax-paying corporations in Canada. Rockway is not a tax-paying corporation, it's a not-for-profit organization. What this tax credit leaves out, and what's unfortunately not going to happen due to the state of parliament right now in an upcoming election, is a tax credit for non-tax-paying entities in Canada. This being municipalities, indigenous groups, non-profits, charities. There is no tax credit that's going to pass before there's a new government, and we don't know what's going to happen with a new government. So right now there is no tax credit for entities like Rockway in Canada. CED is a tax-paying corporation and can access this tax credit. And so by partnering with CED, we're able to improve for Rockway the economics of solar in this building. And this is part of the value that CED can bring to the world, is working with municipalities, nonprofits of various kinds, in order to improve economics of solar in those places. Next slide. Okay, the mechanism. All right, Josh talked a little bit about it. Power Purchase Agreement, or PPA for short, is how Rockway kind of pays for the power, and how CED is going to recoup its investment over time. The idea here is that, like Josh said, there is no capital outlay. Rockway did not pay anything to have this installed. All the funds came from CED Co-op. The Power Purchase Agreement, simply put, is an agreement to buy power at a set rate for a set term, with a few kind of negotiables, like how much does the rate increase over time, and how long is the term for, and a few other things that we can kind of chat through when we're having a conversation about these things. So that agreement, why would Rockway do it? Josh told us a little bit already, but there's care for environment values that are part of this organization. Where we want to do some good in the world and live out that care for environment priority, as an organization and as individuals. And this Power Purchase Agreement is a mechanism to do some good in the world, to build some solar without needing to outlay a huge amount of capital. All right, this is not quite a 7-figure project, but almost a 7-figure project, and that's a hard amount of money to come up with for organizations who aren't planning for it for quite some time, most of the time. Unless, there is in the room maybe that mysterious donor that we were talking about before. So anyways, that's the power purchase agreement. You know, it's each kilowatt hour of power that comes off the array is purchased by the school. The amount of savings per kilowatt hour might surprise you. It's a penny, a single penny per kilowatt hour. But the school uses a whole bunch of kilowatt hours every year. Right? Every day, every week, there's more and more and more that flow through the school and into lights and mics and things like that. And every time the school is using power, it's a penny saved. Penny saved, penny saved, penny saved. And what's that old saying? Penny saved? Penny saved. You know it, right? So that's how, or part of the way that Rockway is benefiting here. It's not just care for environment and able to care for environment without having to outlay a whole bunch of capital. It's some savings over time as well. Josh mentioned 3% increase on the rate over time. All right, projections from bodies that deal with electricity in Ontario project that electricity will increase at a higher rate than 3% as well. What that means is savings should actually grow over time. And you know, there should be more and more savings as things go on here. So that power purchase agreement is the mechanism by which Rockway can access power, by which CED makes some money for its investors. And this is the mechanism that CED is looking to grow with as well. We don't really have the opportunity in Ontario to do that feed-in tariff style of investment anymore. And so this is how we do it, through power purchase agreements. And where there's good alignment of values and desire to do some good and build some solar and appetite for it and appetite from folks like you to invest in it, you know, we can create win-win situations where organizations are able to meet their goals. They're able to build some solar, see a little bit of savings at the same time, and investors are able to put their money into something that's going to do some good in the world. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. I've got one more slide. Just want to let you know that PPAs are not a new thing, and they're not a small thing worldwide. Billions of dollars flow through power purchase agreements around the world every year. This only goes to 2022, but solar, as costs come down, like Brian was talking about, is going up and up and up and up. If you look at graphs on solar adoption worldwide, it is crazy how much solar is getting built right now compared to last year, even. It's a good news story, and along the lines of hope, which we're talking lots about. You know, solar and renewables are being deployed right now at a rate that is absolutely unprecedented and is off the charts. Like, if you look at the chart, it's like this kind of thing for solar deployment around the world. And a whole bunch of that is happening through power purchase agreements for organizations with similar priorities and different priorities to Rockway to access clean power, access it at an affordable rate, and get some more good done in the world. So I'm going to end things there. I will take questions if there are any. If not, you can come find me afterwards, that's okay. Happy to chat with you about solar, about power purchase agreements, about anything to do with this project. I'm here and ready to talk. And next up is Rockway student, Ab.
Oh goodness, there's photos of me. Oh, I had no idea. That's so wonderful. Cool. Hello, my name is Alyssa Panda, and I am a grade 12 student here at Rockway. Over the past few months, I have had the privilege of being able to talk to CTV News and Canadian Mennonite Magazine about the work that's been going on above our heads. And I am so glad you are all here to hear more about the Rockway difference. While what I have to share is not as scientific as everything else we've heard, this is more the emotional standpoint of where all the students at Rockway are and how we're feeling about this. Climate change is a topic that's been talked about my whole life. Always this dark cloud of all the negative news. And of course, all the adults telling me that it was my job to fix it. Something about how they were too far gone to make a difference now. Climate change has always been a bad thing to me. And I really believe that that's because that's all we talked about. Always climate change, never climate action. I am so lucky to be standing up here today, sharing with you the impact that our school and its super cool partners have started making. I've only been at Rockway for about 2 years now, but I've been able to see the dedication of the school and the commitment the students have to their involvement. Even as the solar panels were being quite loudly installed above our heads, I could tell my peers were excited. Not only because it was a new and different thing happening at the school, but because I think we could all feel that dark cloud being cleared away. Here in a building we spend almost every day, there were adults making a change. And instead of feeling like it was a weight that was ours alone to carry, for the first time it felt like we were doing it together. And as Mr. Hill mentioned, the most important part to me is that we won't stay quiet either. Me and a team of students are working on some huge initiatives that are designed to share the joy and positivity of this action. With the help of our robotics team, we're making a huge sign that will light up and tell everyone we're running on sunshine. Not only will it be eye-catching, but it'll tell students, staff, and guests just how many kilowatt hours we've generated so far. And that's just the beginning. We're also planning a huge school-wide video. Packed filled with singing and dancing, this project is being designed to spread even more excitement about the change that we're making. Because it's true. Initiatives like these solar panels are making a difference. Climate change isn't stopping anytime soon. And one school, in one city, in one province, in one country, in the world is not going to just stop it all, but we really are a small school for a big world team. Because Rockway is not only discussing climate change, but taking climate action. The fate of the whole world doesn't just fall on us kids. We're all living in it, and we need to make the impacts that we can, together. Thank you.
How's it going, everyone? My name's Cody. I work for CED within the impact investment side of our team here. I was brought on in late September, early October, and obviously I'm here to talk to you about CED Co-op today. And I just want to talk about the powerful work we're doing within the energy space. At CED Co-op, our mission is simple: to create clean, community-driven energy projects that help build a more sustainable future. What makes our work so impactful is that we're building together with communities, with schools, with organizations, within the energy space to create a better world for everyone. CED Co-op has already completed 117 energy projects, and Rockway is our 118th. These projects aren't just about installing solar panels, they're about reducing our carbon footprint, creating clean energy, and helping communities thrive by saving money on energy. Thanks to these efforts, we're removing 8,500 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere every single year. To put that into perspective, as you can see up here, it's about 2,100 passenger vehicles per year. It isn't just about the numbers, it's about making a real positive difference for our future and for our planet. And this is just the beginning. We want to do more. We want to build more solar projects, and we continue increasing our impact with your support. We can keep building together. We're used to hearing about the alarm bells, right, within climate. We see right now within California, the fires, everyone fleeing their homes. We talk about rising sea levels constantly and the extreme weather events. It does get overwhelming to have a constant barrage of negative news about our future. But today, we are here to talk about a brighter future, a better future, how we can do more, we can work together to be part of the solution. This project at Rockway is just one example of how we can actively shift our thinking from crisis to an opportunity. It's a model we can replicate across schools and businesses and communities. And the best part, it's already happening. You can see it here. With your support, we can take this model to scale. We can build more solar projects, reduce more CO2, and bring clean, affordable energy to even more communities. We have the tools, the partnerships, and the opportunity to make a real, tangible difference. And like I said, you can be part of that change. How? Well, I can tell you how. You can use your money to make an impact. Invest in CED. We offer Class C shares with an attractive 6% annual rate of return. What's even better is your investment doesn't just provide you that financial return. It directly supports energy projects like the one here at Rockway. Something you can look to, see tangibly within your communities. Your investment in clean, renewable energy can be structured to fit your needs, whether that's a registered, such as a TFSA, an RSP, a RIF, or non-registered. You can achieve long-term growth benefit from tax advantages, or simply make a real difference by investing with this. This opportunity is designed for all types of investors, and specifically for those looking to make an impact. CED's model is designed to be scalable. As we grow, so does our positive impact for the environment and for our communities. Investing in CED Co-op provides you with reliable returns. You won't worry about the volatility that comes with the traditional stock market or the individual investment in one solar project. It's a stable, sustainable, and responsible way to invest in clean energy. By joining CED Co-op, you're not just making an investment in solar energy, you're making an investment in a movement. One that's focused on building a sustainable future for everyone. We are building this future together. And your investment powers that growth. The idea is simple. We are going to build a brighter future together. We're not talking about potential changes sometime in the future. It's already happening right here. By joining CED Co-op, you are not just investing in solar energy. You are investing in a cleaner, sustainable future for our children, for communities. You're investing in the future we want to live in. A future where we all contributed to overcoming the energy challenges we are facing today. A future that we built together. My call to you is to obviously want to speak with every one of you, about CED in more depth. The goal is, like Brian has talked about within cooperatives, the goal is to pool our resources together. We want to build more solar, do more good, and create a future that is something that Alyssa talked to, one where we actually make a change, not just talk about making a change. So I want to thank all of you for coming today to be a part of this journey. I want to shout out to Rockway specifically for your commitment to wanting to build sustainably. And thank you all for considering CED and coming today. Let's continue to move forward together, building a brighter, cleaner, and more sustainable future. And as our slogan says, there's power in our community. And I just want to say thank you again to everyone. And I just want to quickly highlight some of the people here in the room. The idea of what we're hoping to do is have everyone kind of stay, mingle, kind of talk, if there's any specific questions you have. We are going to do a bit of a formal Q&A, so I'll get Zach and Brian and Josh as well to kind of come up to the front in case someone has a question that they would like to, ask. I know Zach did stop throughout, but if you're not the type of person that's comfortable to come up to the mic, that's okay. We are going to obviously stick around. There's refreshments and snacks, and we're hoping, to speak to any of you that would like to. I also want to point out Madison. She's got her hand up over there. She is a team member at VCT, and she will be more than willing if you can't get a hold of one of us, as well as Patrick in the back there. He was actually a part of getting this project built, so he knows in depth about this. So, like I said, thank you again for coming today. And the idea here is to, continue this conversation and discuss things further. So, thank you. Somebody please don't be shy. Someone started. Okay.
Alright. How do you foresee solar fitting into the future of the grid in general? Like, what are you going to do when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing? What other source of power, energy storage do you foresee?
I'll maybe jump in on that one. So question in case if people didn't hear is, what do you do when the sun doesn't shine or the wind doesn't blow? So those are certainly two key elements in renewable energy, but we also have water power, we also have biofuels and that type of thing. So there are other things that do function a little bit more as baseload energy generation that aren't as variable as wind and solar. As much as wind and solar are variable, though they are very predictable. If you look at how much wind blows over the course of a year, how much solar irradiance we receive over the course of the year, it is very consistent. So we are able to do a fair bit of planning. And in that, then we can actually get away with pretty small amounts of storage. So battery technologies are coming a long way. Other things are coming in to help level loads. We have a whole lot of electric vehicles that are going to be hitting the stage in the next 10 years that are just rolling batteries that are going to have that intelligence to be able to know when should we be charging, when should we not, either through market mechanisms or through actual technological innovation. So we certainly see a future where we can be 100% renewably powered, and there's lots of things that are coming to market that are going to be able to level out the ups and downs of wind and solar.
I'll just add one more part to that response. For those who are interested in the technical side of things and how it all works, highly recommend a guy out of California, Berkeley, named Mark Jacobson. He's written a book that's basically the case for wind, water, solar, battery. It's called No Miracles Needed.
Byron Weber-Becker, follow-up question. There was a graph, I think that Zach showed, that showed, you know, a very definite peak in the summertime for the solar production and a very definite trough in the wintertime. Brian, you talked about sort of short-term needs, short-term leveling with batteries and such, but what do you do with the long-term annual kind of cycles?
I'm going to be at risk of repeating myself a little bit. We do see that the overlap of sun and wind, or actually the what's the word I'm looking for? The cooperation or offsetting generation. So wind, when it's sunny out, most often it's not as windy, and when it's cloudy, or when especially in the wintertime, at nighttime, that's when the winds do arise. So there is a good balance in offsetting in some of that. It isn't perfect though. There are times when, I think the Germans have a phrase for it, Dunkelflaute, where you have darkness and you have no wind. What they've done is some research on that to realize that the fear of how long these can last is actually a little bit overblown. Usually a couple days at most is what we're looking at there. And so then again, we've got alternative or additional sources of generation that are considered renewable and are zero carbon that can step in. There are some that believe that nuclear is a reasonable form of non-emitting generation. Some of that's going to come on whether we want it to or not, and that can help in some of those situations. There are places that are really already working with high penetrations of renewables, high degrees of their energy consumption being powered by renewables, and they are making it work.
I'm Andrew Sheetal. I'll ask a specific question about that that I was actually asked today. I'm an energy advisor, and I was asked by a customer, is there anything with battery storage, like for your house or for a facility like this, where there actually is sort of a market, like a market type benefit presently? I know it would probably involve the utility valuing that. Does that exist today, or is that still a little ways in the future?
So in terms of market mechanisms, in Ontario, there's really only one class of customer that has a really good market mechanism for battery storage to be part of their approach to how they manage their energy. For what we call a Class A customer. A Class A customer pays for some of their energy consumption based on how much energy they use during the 5 peak hours of the whole year of when Ontario is consuming its most. And so there are some people that are employing battery systems to try and peak shade during those 5 specific hours, trying to guess properly as to which 5 hours those are going to be, and then run their batteries and not draw power from grid. At this point, from a market mechanism, that's really the only structure that rewards battery in Ontario. Outside of Ontario, I know there are other market mechanisms that are trying to be developed. Some of what you simply call an arbitrage, where you're buy low, sell high kind of thing, a stock market strategy, when you just simply have very significant rate differences between off-peak and on-peak. In Ontario, we're still not quite in a position where our arbitrage makes sense to invest in battery quite yet, but we are seeing more and more interest in developing market models at the provincial level and then eventually at the utility level to help create those opportunities.
So I'm glad we have a bunch of smart people I can ask this question to, because this might sound dumb, so I'm going to go for it anyway. It's my understanding that the power grid that Ontario produces, which is non-renewable, has enough energy to supply the province. And the regulation of how much they produce is less fine-tuned. So how many solar projects do we have to have, or maybe we're going to have evidence of this, that we can actually stop building those or turn them down? Does that question make sense? Like, I feel like we're adding energy to a grid that's already full of energy, and then we're claiming that we've saved energy or saved emissions when the power plants are still emitting. That question makes sense.
So maybe a couple parts to answer the question here. First of all, in Ontario, solar mostly displaces gas generation. So when solar is producing, it tends to produce well at peak times, and peak times are when gas tends to come on. So most of the time, solar is displacing gas on our grid here in Ontario. But to kind of like build that out a little bit, Ontario needs a whole bunch more power. If you want to spend some time like researching or looking it up, there's a procurement going on that's kind of in process right now called Long-Term 2 or LT2 for short. The projections from the IESO, which is our regulator of electricity in Ontario, is that Ontario is going to need this much more energy, and it's a really, really, really big amount more power. As we electrify home heating and cooling, building heating and cooling, as we switch from gas vehicles to electric vehicles, we need a whole bunch more power. And the idea is that, well, let's get that whole bunch more power from wind and from batteries and from solar, rather than building more gas plants or more nuclear plants.
Maybe to throw a few numbers behind that. So from 2005 through to last year, this year, we finally reversed the trend. So even though the population of Ontario has increased by about, I don't know, almost 20% in that 20-year period, our electricity consumption as a province on a kilowatt hour basis has actually dropped by about 15%. So on top of the growth, we've still seen a decrease in electricity consumption. A lot of that is from just simply energy efficiency. Some of it is from industry leaving the province. But what is now forecast, as Zach very adequately demonstrated, between now and 2050, in the next 25 years, it is forecast that the electricity consumption in the province is expected to double. So we definitely do need to start bringing on energy generation, and of course, wherever we're going to do that, I prefer to see that it comes from renewables.
Good to have you guys here tonight. My name's Glenn Molnar. I'm a graduate, 64, also a parent and grandparent of Rockway students. And I was part of Crew Community Renewable Energy Waterloo and did my own install, including geothermal, solar hot water, and solar PV that completed in 2011. And worked with you and the City of Kitchener with a grant to put the initial 10 kilowatt on the old classroom building back in 2012. So that kind of lines up with your ramping up in your beginnings, and so glad to be at this point with you. What I have a question here, the articles that have appeared have thrown a bit of a cloud over the green side of solar, and that in terms of the content that make up a panel, okay, how are they collected? And we've got all kinds of stories and misinformation floating around there. And then how are they eventually recycled? And I know that most panels will last 30 to 50 years in that range. So we haven't really seen that happening yet. But how do we get that information out there in terms of what goes into making a panel? And eventually, how do we dispose of that? People envision, you know, landfill sites full of this material. And I think we need to answer that one, because there's a lot of people in the articles that we saw, and this is a great message to get out there, but then you hang this cloud over and say, well, maybe it's not all what it's, you know, cracked up to be. So I wonder if you want to respond to that.
Sure. I'll start and then you can probably chime in on that. So Glenn, I think we actually may have met for the very first time in this room in 2009. I think we had a booth there, you might have had a booth over there at one of the Crew events, so yeah, it has been a while. So to address some of those items, the manufacture of solar panels, I'll start with those. A lot of it does happen in Asia. Asia has a reputation for very dirty power. What isn't known though is that China specifically, and many Asian countries around, China itself is adding renewables faster than any country in the world. And they are specifically trying to green the supply chain that produces solar power, or solar panels. And so if you look at the embodied energy, the embodied carbon specifically, of solar panels, over the last 5 years, it has dropped by about 80 to 90%. So it's not saying that there isn't still some embodied energy, is a carbon-based energy generation in solar panels, but it is something that I think the current estimated payback is now under a year in terms of how much energy that panel needs to generate to offset the carbon that was used to produce that panel. At this point, there are some solar panels that are making their way to landfills. From a technology standpoint, we have all the technology to recycle more than 90% of the content of a solar panel by weight. What's happening though is that it seems like a whole truckload of panels isn't that a lot of panels. Yes, it is, and it's tragic that it might end up in landfill. It does from time to time. But recycling facilities are starting to exist. The challenge is that a truckload of panels is not an industry. And so as much as it feels like a lot of panels, we really need some critical mass of those panels coming out of the circulation to sustain an industry that can keep the machines busy, typically grinding up those solar panels, separating the parts, reclaiming the materials that are in it to be able to put back into industry. So I'm not saying that everybody who develops solar, whoever takes a solar panel off the roof is doing the right thing with it, but the thing is you do still have that physical object in your hands, and that is going to be the cheapest place that you can go after many of the materials that are in that solar panel versus going to extract new minerals out of the soils to create more. So, I mean, we are on the right path. I'm not saying everything's going 100% smoothly on the path to get there. Inverters, the inverters are power electronics, like our computers and TVs and everything like that. There are pretty good facilities for recycling most of the power electronics. When it comes to the racking systems, a lot of it is aluminum, which is infinitely recyclable. Galvanized steel. Steel is another one of the most recycled products in the world and does typically get fully recycled. And then we do also have concrete blocks that are used as ballast on some of these systems. And we've actually just struck up a new relationship with a supplier that is actually producing a concrete block that is carbon negative. So typically you see cement powder as one of your main pieces in a concrete block. We still call it concrete, but there isn't actually any cement powder in it. So they're using a slag that's ground up as a fine powder and it replaces that Portland cement, and it's actually sequestering carbon, and then they actually inject CO2 into it. And so when we are starting to now use concrete blocks and weighing down systems, we're actually able to use a carbon negative material to be able to install those. So we are certainly trying to turn our attention to, are we actually doing good in the big picture, not just what's being produced by the systems. Not saying there isn't room for improvement, but we're a long part of the way there.
Yeah, and this is a short edition, but that 90% volume that Brian was talking about in the panels is mostly aluminum and glass. It's not very expensive stuff, right? And so it's harder to find the market to recycle just because it's not gold or platinum or a high value material that you want to get every tiny little bit of it back. And as more and more solar comes offline, there'll be more and more of this material available. Economies of scale will start to happen and they will start to get recycled. So it's coming along and it's going to keep getting better.
Hopefully maybe a quick one. A lot of these projects seem like they're targeting large scale, big businesses and areas with a lot of rooftop, I suspect, to deal with the economies of scale with residential. But is there precedent or opportunity for communities to get together and maybe even form a co-op to then sign a PPA and do this kind of thing, whether it's condo corporations or tight-knit housing communities? Is there any discussions about that at all?
Yeah, so in the US and in Nova Scotia, there's something called community solar. And community solar is exactly that. There's no mechanism for it in Ontario right now, but if you want to talk to your local MPP or elected official, this is a great thing to talk about. So community solar is people doing what you said you want to do or maybe have an idea about. It's installing a solar project at scale. It's typically on the ground in ground mount fashion or agrivoltaics, or can be rooftops as well. But the idea is you build at scale and people will subscribe to the project. And so you'll have, I'm going to own 1 panel or 10 panels, or like our school is going to buy 100 panels. And what you get is a discount on your power bill corresponding to how much of the project you've kind of bought in for. And this is a way for people who can't do solar on their own. There's a lot of people like that. If you rent a home, odds are you can't put solar on it. You have to have a fair bit of capital to deploy to do a solar installation. You may not have that. You may have a roof like mine that's lovely, pointed north. Right? And so this may be you in this kind of situation, and community solar is for people like that, and businesses like that, and I would love to see it here in Ontario. It's something that I've been advocating for where I have a chance to, and hopefully it's something that comes up in the coming years. Our government has done a total 180 in the last 2 terms on their attitudes toward renewables, and we're seeing things announced right now Just this past week, 2 grants came out in Ontario. One's focused at residences. There are incentives for solar and batteries for residences. And there's commercial solar incentives here in Ontario now, something we've never seen before. And so, you know, our government is now incentivizing solar where they came into power, kind of tearing up renewable energy contracts. And so we are making progress. We are seeing advancements in regulations that pertain to the kinds of things that might enable community solar. But in Ontario, we're not quite there. I saw Patrick at the back.
In the meantime, if you have a north-facing roof that isn't great for solar, but you've got some money to invest, or that you were going to put towards that project, the co-op is this mechanism. So instead of putting that chunk of money onto a rooftop solar system on your house that doesn't produce the way it could, put that money into the co-op, we build a bigger project, and you get returns. And you're creating renewable energy projects in your community. But this is the mechanism, in absence of what Zach was saying, until that kind of policy and legislative work happens.
As a lonely Rockway teacher, my question is, what is the minimum investment to require CED?
Yeah. So if it is your first investment on this current offering statement we have, it is $5,000 for your first investment. Part of the reason for that is depending if you did choose, say, a registered product like a TFSA or an RSP, we have to partner with a fund company, and they have annual fees associated to that. So it would eat into your return. So we kind of put a limit there at 5,000. And so for this current offering statement, it is. Speaking with Brian, we'll see if there's a way to move it, but your first investment would be for 5,000, and then thereafter you could put in whatever you'd like. You could say the first should be 5,000, and then after that, if you had to drop down to say $500, there was no limit after that. But unfortunately, with the minimum, we have to stick to 5,000 for right now, and that's just where we are with it.
To look at it from the other side, what's the maximum?
So we have to do an offering statement as an investment tool. So cooperatives are regulated under the Cooperative Corporations Act, and we report to the Financial Services Regulatory Authority. And I have to write a book every spring that gets reviewed by the Financial Services Regulatory Authority. It's called an offering statement. They review it and see if it meets the bar for full, true, plain disclosure, and if so, they receipt it, and then after that we can start raising money. One of the things we have to do is put the parameters, this minimum 5,000, the maximum is actually 5 million on this one. If that's too little for you, then
So another question would be, could somebody buy you out on this project so Rockway gets the full benefit?
So the way this project works is that in our lease agreement that underlies the power purchase agreement, Rockway can start to look at buying it out on an annual basis after the 5th year. And so after the 5th year, on every anniversary date, there's an opportunity to buy out, and that price for buyout is prescribed in the agreement, so there's already certainty of what would it cost to get CED Co-op out of the way and take over full ownership of it. I will point out, though, that under the federal Clean Technology Investment Tax Credit, there's what they call a recapture period of 10 years. So if that buyout happens, and you'll see reflected if you look at the rates that are prescribed in that form, if CED Co-op is bought out before 10 years is up, CED Co-op has to repay that proportionate amount of that 30% investment tax credit based on what the sale price is. And so it really would only make sense to look at a buyout after that 10th year has transpired. But if there's investment interest, then by all means we can look for other projects, and Rockway could feel free to own another project on another, and then when that 10th year elapses, look at making a trade of some sort.
I don't know who it might benefit, but I thought we ought to draw that out.
Two questions. Question number one is, it sure looks like we're going to have an election soon, and it sure looks like one of the front leaders of that is negative on these kinds of things. In particular, Axe the Tax and the the carbon tax kind of thing, which I presume affects the price of power. Does that present a risk to CED Co-op or to its investors? Question number 2, if I can, and that is, I'd just like to know sort of the distribution of your investors. How many investors are there, and how many at the 5,000 end, and how many at the 5 million end, and sort of in between? With a rough wave of the hand, what's the distribution?
I'll start with the first question on what are the political implications. So far the rhetoric from the Canadian federal scene is that there is a desire to end carbon pricing. So how that would potentially affect, and I don't know that I have all of the aspects in mind, largely that would be realized on the electricity price through potentially reducing slightly the cost of gas-fired generation. In 2017, gas-fired generation only made up 4% of the electricity that was consumed in Ontario. Last year it was 12%, so we are actually seeing an increase in the amount of gas that the province uses right now. 12% is more than I wish it was, but it's still actually fairly small in what feeds into the electricity price in Ontario, so there might be some minor effect, downward pressure on it, but I don't think it should be catastrophic in our business models. So far, all of the discussion has been limited to ending carbon pricing in terms of this federal Clean Technology Investment Tax Credit. It has seemed to be supported by all the parties, so we do expect that to endure. But there's also craziness happening south of the border, and some of the idea that we need this Clean Technology Investment Tax Credit is pressure put on us by the Inflation Reduction Act in the US, and all bets are off on that. So, not saying that there isn't some cause for us to keep an eye on the market, but at this point we still feel like we're in pretty good shape. Second question.
Just distribution of the investors.
Distribution of investors. Okay. Yeah, so we have 840-ish members in the cooperative. Each of them hold a single $10 membership share. Beyond that, we have investors that I would guess are probably in about the 500 number of investors there that would hold anywhere from, in previous offerings we didn't have the $5,000 minimum, so some of them may hold as little as $500. We have had several investments that are individually are into the couple $100,000. We've had one that hit $1 million, one at $750,000. So we do have a pretty broad range of capability and dollars at stake amongst our investor base. The average, I will say, over the last couple of offerings, the average investment made by any individual within a specific offering, and we've had 6 of them, is typically around $30,000, if that's a helpful data point.
Just before you go there, I'll add on the political front that while we're maybe seeing some shifting opinions federally, we're seeing the same thing provincially, even with the same governments in power. And so, it's slightly disconcerting to see what might happen federally, but encouraging to see even a conservative government provincially incentivizing solar. And it feels like the winds are too strong to change, that the things are going to kind of keep blowing the direction we think they're going to, regardless of, some of the powers that be may be trying to push the other way.
From an investor perspective, obviously there's a lot of benefits and value and everything. It's not just purely financial, but from a purely financial perspective, you said 6%. Is that dividends? You mentioned something about tax efficiency and other things. Can you talk about that a little bit? And let's say you put some money in, and I don't know, 5 years down, you have some financial issues. Can you sell the shares again, or you can stop for a certain period of time? Thank you.
Great. So I'll give you the short version. The long version is 240 pages, and it's called that offering statement. So in terms of our return on investment, for what we're offering right now, this Class C share, it is a dividend return. Long story made short is the way we become eligible for registered investments, TFSAs, RSPs, is that we made an election to become a public corporation for tax purposes. And so as that tax structure, all the dividends that we pay are considered eligible dividends from a tax treatment, so they're the most favorable in terms of taxes. And that's all then when you hold it outside of a registered plan. Of course, if you put it in our RSP or TFSA, then it's taxed, or not taxed, or taxed upon withdrawal as income. If you want to then sell your shares, at this point, the way we've structured our Class C share is that when we pay those dividends, it's actually a share dividend rather than a cash dividend. So it's like a compounding effect on the shares. And then if and when you decide that you want to liquidate some or all of those shares, then it is an application process to the board has to approve all transactions. It will often take a few months to transact a liquidation or a partial sale of those shares, but